it's so weird growing up and always wanting to have lived in the West. I always wanted to live in the United Kingdom or in France or in California, yeah. And now that I grew up, I am so thankful for being a Romanian. Like, every single day of my life is difficult to articulate just how thankful I am. And the only Romanians that don't like Romania are the ones that actually don't know how things are in the West. They don't know how bad it is. So they are so detached from reality that when you present to them a news article like this, they do not believe you. Like, they think it's made up. They think it's like a story from a comic book. But the reality is that an actual person has went to prison for this. Like, you need to imagine, you are this guy walking on the street with a small, tiny toy sword, not even thinking that you're breaking any law, and yet. So, what actually happened? Well, you need to understand first how London is operated. You need to think of London like a prison. Like, I'm not even making it up. Like, literally, you're not allowed to carry shanks, right? And the police can frisk you. And if they find any object that could potentially somehow, in the mind of some deranged person, be interpreted as a weapon, they can arrest you, right? So in this case, it was this toy sword. Look how tiny it is. Look how tiny it is. Like, you cannot use this in combat. Like, if I was in a self-defense situation and I had this, I would rather use my hands. I would rather just pick a rock from the ground to defend myself than to use this. This is unusable. But again, I guess like the laws in civilized British society, they consider that any blade that's longer than a very ridiculous small amount can be a shank. Right? So I wonder, like, if you have a toothbrush that you sharpen it, right? Like, even that's not allowed, I guess. So the people enforcing the law, they do not use any common sense whatsoever, as displayed here. Because you have the spirit of the law. Like, why is the law passed? It's so that actual gang members that do carry knives in public do not stab each other, right? Like, that is the purpose of the law. Who is this guy? Well, he seems to be like a random citizen on the age of 45. Like, you usually even grow out of crime after a certain age. Like, the people causing violent crimes are most likely young people. He does not fit the profile of a criminal. He's just some guy that has a toy sword. And he justifies it as being a fidget spinner. Like, it's something to keep his hands occupied. Like, he collaborated with the police. He didn't try to run away from them, didn't attack them, didn't offer any resistance whatsoever. He was just like completely surprised and bewildered that he's even breaking the law, right? So the police pull out the ruler. They measure the length of this toy item, which, as you can see, it's quite tiny. Like, it's the size of a hand, basically. And they said, nope, it's actually bigger than the law allows. And not only is the man now going to 4 months in prison, like, imagine this, right? Imagine your father going to prison for this. Or imagine you yourself, like, you're going out and you're doing something that you can do in literally any part of the world. Like, anywhere else in the world you can do this, but you are unfortunate enough to be a citizen of the United Kingdom. So now you gotta be subjected to this level of bizarre tyranny. And then the cops, right? Like, the cops come out and say, we take a zero tolerance to blade articles in public. Yeah, we know. You're mental. You're absolutely mental. We know this. You don't have to express it in public again. Again, like, I understand that the law is the law, right? And there is the letter of the law, but there's also the spirit. You need to have some level of common sense. You need to have, like, some degree of common sense. And if the police officers don't have degrees of common sense, because I know they're more interested in painting their car's rainbow rather than actually reading legislation and forcing on applying the laws, you would think that at least the judges may be like, okay, well, this guy doesn't have a criminal record. This is the first time that he did something like this. In Romania, we even have in our criminal code the possibility for a judge to assess whether or not jail time would make it worse. Because if you take a law-abiding citizen that genuinely made a mistake and you put him in prison with like the worst criminals imaginable, there is the concept of social contagion. There is the concept of him actually learning how to be a hardened criminal just because he went there, right? When you send someone to prison, it's highly likely that they're going to lose their jobs. It's highly likely that their social reputation is ruined. So now they're not going to be able to be a productive member of society, so they have to go to a life of crime. Which is why, in most cases, when you notice that, okay, well, it's obviously ridiculous. The man didn't want to break the law. I mean, he should have known better, right? You give him a fine. You give him, like, some community service. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't punish people for breaking the law. Heaven forbid. But at the same time, to always go, like, 4 months in prison for this. And also, when you think about it, right? Like, imagine you're living in this peaceful neighborhood. Imagine you're living in this really nice, gated community, and everything is fine. But, like, at one point, a lot of people move in. Like 100 people move into this small community. And they start doing a lot of shit. They're breaking windows. They're beating up each other. They're getting drunk. They're getting wasted. So now, like, all sorts of rules and regulations are enforced in order to keep the peace. Rules and regulations that weren't even there before. Like, everyone is like, going to be able to... The housing association is going to be able to go into your house to check to see if you have any drink or alcohol, to make sure that you're in bed at a proper hour, like curfew is installed. And then, you know, like, you're going out one night to walk your dog and you realize you violated like 7 or 8 rules from the housing association and now you have to suffer. And the question is like, why? What exactly did you do wrong? What exactly did you do wrong? Right? Like, because other people do not know how to behave. And that now you, who have been behaving all this time, and your family has been behaving all this time, are now in a pickle. You're in a pickle. Over this shit. And by the way, every single time you hear Democrats in America saying banning guns, this is the level where we're at, okay? Like, there are other countries that did it. You don't really have to imagine how it's like. There are other nations that banned guns. And the problem is that when you have people that want to kill each other, the gun is just the instrument. So when you remove the guns, they find alternatives, and then they have to ban those as well, right? So now they're banning all sorts of cutlery and knives and shit, and then people can just use hammers. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. The problem needs to be addressed. The problem is that you have people that are criminals. That is the problem. It's not the tools that they use. Like, sure, the tool can make that the violence they express can be easier to express or not, but at the end of the day, the desire to commit violence is the problem. It's not the tools that they use, so that you constantly ban them until you reach this shit. Even people from Romania are unable to believe that this article is real. Let me know what you guys think, though, and as usual, I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.